British Canada had been 6 separate colonies. The British learned from the American Revolution to allow their colonies to evolve towards independence. Due to strong cultural ties, they will remain close. The fastest growing provinces were Ontario. They were also known as Upper Canada due to a higher elevation on the St. Lawrence River. The vast majority spoke English. They were Protestant and were made up of Scotch-Irish, and English. Quebec, or Lower Canada, due to a lower elevation on the St. Lawrence River, were former French that had lost in the 7 Years' War. They kept their language plus Catholicism. The Atlantic provinces spoke English, but they were separated from Ontario and relied on seafaring for their commerce. Also, British Columbia, mainly around Vancouver Island, was on the Pacific coast and was separated from the rest of the colonies by the Rocky Mountains. So each colony had their own culture and economy. Native Americans and mixed race Métis populated all the provinces, and to the north were the Inuit peoples, which is shown on the map as the Northwest Territories. During the 1830s, each colony was allowed their own separate parliament to achieve responsible government. However, they were still isolated between each group. During the American Civil War, Britain still tried to purchase products from the South and was willing to sell them arms. There was some fear that the U.S. North would gobble up parts of British Canada. In 1867, the British Parliament passed the Confederation of Canada. All of the British colonies united under a single federal constitution. Only 4 of the colonies joined at first, but the constitution allowed future members. It is important to note that Canada was still a dominion of the British Empire. While Canada had control over its domestic affairs, Great Britain controlled its foreign policy. Thus, they were wed to Britain's military. Sir John Macdonald became the first Prime Minister in 1867 and led until his death 24 years later in 1891. He led during an economic boom that paralleled the U.S. economy, fueled by railroad construction. The Canada Pacific Railway connected Manitoba and Northwestern Territories to the rest of Canada. They entered the Confederation as the British Columbia in 1871 when the railway went to the Pacific coast. As the railroad was connecting Canada, it would open up many of the Great Plains. The Great Plains of Canada would lead to a lot of agricultural output as the Great Plains of the United States. A lot of buffalo, horses, cattle, tall grasses. With the introduction of modern machinery and tractors, you would have a great deal of grain production being increased.